Nosferatu is a freaky girl.
Should've sent a thank you note, your little hoe.
And if you haven't seen it yet, I totally recommend it. But if you don't know what it is, then quote. It is a gothic tale of obsession between a hunted young woman and a terrifying vampire infatuated with her, causing untold horror in its wake. And I've just seen it, and it's a stunning movie. It's very beautiful. Every scene is amazing, and Robert Eggers, the director of Nosferatu, is obsessed with history, and I love that about him. He really went deep into researching the tradition of vampires that rooted in Romanian culture, and I'm also Romanian, so I can tell you more about the history of Dracula. But first, let's see what Rotten Tomatoes says. Right now it's sitting at 85% after 254 reviews and 75 at Popcorn Meter for over 5,000 reviews. Maybe you've heard about this movie on TikTok.
Trench coat button to the top and these ballerina ass slippers.
Because I also did, and I've also heard that we had Brad Summer and now it's Nosferatu Winter. And Nosferatu has created so much awareness on TikTok and also in the online and social media because of its aesthetic, and people now are obsessed with Nosferatu Winter. And also it was premiered on maybe most of the world on 25th of December on Christmas Day, which is pretty wild to release a horror movie, which I love. But in Romania, where I'm from, it was released on the 2nd of January and the whole cinema was packed. It was full, and I was kind of surprised because it's just after the holidays. It's just after New Year's. So I'm pretty glad that people are still enjoying good cinema. So a bit of a review. It's very different from any Hollywood vampire movies like, I don't know, Twilight or maybe Vampire Diaries, which I know is a series, but it doesn't reflect the vampire being a hot boy and sexy and seducing, and it's actually a very traditional movie. Which I also said that Robert Eggers respects the folklore. He wanted to pay an homage to the first movies, to the movies that came before this remake. And I think that this is a remake of the 1922 Nosferatu, which is, I think, the first horror movie, but I'm not sure. Anyway, that's pretty wild. Also, Robert Eggers said that he wanted to make Nosferatu like an original vampire, and he has researched how people that actually believed that vampires were real, how they actually saw vampires and how they think that they looked like. Anyway, as I said, I am Romanian, and vampires are a kind of a big part of our culture. So lucky you, I'm here to tell you a bit about the history of vampires. The original vampire was Vlad Tepes, which is also called Vlad the Impaler in English. I'm gonna read a bit about him. So Vlad III, commonly known as Vlad the Impaler, was voivode of Wallachia 3 times between 1448 and his death in 1476. He is often considered one of the most important rulers in Wallachian history and a national hero in Romania. He was the second son of Vlad Dracu, and that's where Dracula comes from. Besides the history lesson, just the introduction, I want to tell you some urban legends that we have about the vampires. One legend says that Vlad Tepes or Vlad the Impaler or transformed into Count Dracula, because there was kind of this tradition that after a battle you would drink the blood of your enemies, and supposedly, allegedly, he did that. And also, a bit of a spoiler alert, in this movie, Nosferatu wasn't sucking blood from his victim's neck. He chose the chest area, which is more poetic because that's where the heart is. And I think it's a very beautiful direction to really step away from the Hollywood cliches, I think. Also, his nickname Tepes or the Impaler was because often as an execution form that he did a lot, he would impale them. I will attach a photo, and yeah, that's where he got his name. And it all culminated with a site near his fortress where he was sheltering, where he impaled over 20,000 Turkish prisoners. Even Mehmed II retreated, acknowledging the voivode's victory when he saw 20,000 of prisoners of his impaled at the front of his castle. That's a bit crazy, that's a bit much. We listen and we don't judge. Also, they wanted to uncover his body. For 1 year after 1931, an archaeologist called Dino Rossetti, as the order of the Romanian Academy, investigated the Snagov monastery, which is very close to Bucharest. So if you ever come, you can visit it. Anyway, he investigated that because his body was supposed to be there, but he just found looted graves inside the monastery. But urban legend says that his body would be covered under the front of the monastery. But not believing the legend, the researcher dug in front of the altar. I mean, he found in front of the altar a coffin that was empty. But when he continued to dig deeper than that, he found an altar with lots of bones and sacrificed animals, which is weird. But after that, he believed in the legend, or wanted to give it a try, and searched in front of the monastery, found a coffin with a body of a rich person because he had like gold or jewelries with him, but it wasn't Count Dracula, so I guess it was irrelevant. So, the mustache. You can see in the film that Nosferatu has a very big and bushy mustache. That was a bit controversial, or people complained about him having a mustache, but I really didn't find it weird at all because Vlad Tepes actually had a very bushy mustache. As I said, like previously, this vampire represents the original and how people would see vampires. So yeah, he had a mustache. Also, this was done, or I've heard that it was done, so that Thomas Hutter, played by Nicholas Hoult, wouldn't see his teeth that were like pretty sharp, and so he wouldn't know that he's actually dead. He didn't know that he was talking to a vampire at the first time that they met. It was like a trick. The cinematography. Everything was amazing. Every shot was beautifully done. The composition was beautiful and the color grading was amazing. And they actually had a special lens that let only blue and yellow light come through. So it has this feeling of a black and white movie, but it actually also has bits of blue and yellow that makes it more gothic, and I loved every scene, and I want to see it again, and I want to see it at my TV and just pause for some scenes because they are so beautiful, and I was so distracted I couldn't even listen to the story because the imagery was so beautiful. So as I said, the director is Robert Eggers, which also created horror films like The Witch and The Lighthouse. And as IMDb says, his films are noted for their folkloric elements as well as his efforts to ensure historical authenticity, which I think is beautiful that he actually does the research and makes you feel like you're part of the people that actually lived there or actually believe that these legends were true, and he's a history freak, and I love that he does that because he makes his movies so different from the Hollywood cliches.
He'd never please me as he could.
Performances. Lily Rose Depp was the perfect fit for this role, and she does an amazing job playing Helen Hutter. She's very talented, and I'm so glad that she kind of distanced herself from the Idol because of the controversy around it. Even though she did an amazing job on the Idol and she speaks highly of the Idol, I'm glad that we can see how talented she is and how impressive her acting skills are. Also, she auditioned for this role and got the part on the same day after a monologue. So the casting was that you needed to do a monologue, so she just was asked to dig deep into her deepest, darkest fears, and she did a monologue so good that the casting director and the videographer were all in tears because how beautiful and emotional her monologue was. But I don't actually have it. I wish I had it. For her contouring in the film, she has worked with a choreographer that was teaching Japanese booth, which is gothic dance with like pretty unusual decor, and people are usually naked and bald and painted in white. Yeah, pretty gothic, pretty specific. Nosferatu, or Count Orlok, was played by Bill Skarsgård. He also played in It, and he was It. Here's the moment. No, he was It. I hope that's his name. I haven't watched it. I'm sorry. His experience with prosthetics, and I don't know why these roles always come to him. Maybe because he's used to like heavy prosthetics and really can get into the skin of monsters. He also has lots of other roles, but I guess that's what sticks to him, and you know what? He does a pretty good job, so good for him. He made a very good accent because I forgot he was playing it. I thought it was, I don't know, some Romanian guy that is just doing an accent, like very forced, but it was actually him doing an accent, and he did it so good. The prosthetic, spoiler alert, Count Orlok or Nosferatu rises from his coffin and gives us a full frontal for everybody. And people are kind of thirsty for a corpse with a dick. But yeah, I did not find it hot. It was not my type. But if you are into very skinny guys, dead looking with a mustache and a big dick, maybe he's more for you. SpongeBob. I wanted to get to this part, so maybe you've seen it or maybe you didn't, but if you haven't seen this part of an episode from SpongeBob, I will put it right now on the screen.
Can I have a job application? I brought my own spatula. I called earlier, but I hung up because I was nervous. Do you have references?
Wait! If that was you on the phone and you on the bus, then who was flickering the lights?
Nosferatu!
This comes from season 2 of SpongeBob, and the episode is called Graveyard Shift, where Squidward works the night shift at Krusty Krab when a lot of creepy things started happening, but him and SpongeBob finds the reason, the logical reason for everything except the light flickering. And in that episode, there was supposed to be a person living under Krusty Krab in the woods or something like that, and he was flickering the lights. But anyway, he comes into an interview instead, so I'm not sure why. But the director of SpongeBob didn't know who is flickering the lights, so he met with this question and didn't know actually who is flickering the lights. So he wanted to come up with a completely random character because he didn't want to tie it up with any other character, so it needed to be funny and very random. So he thought about magazines that he looked at when he was a child. He had a lot of magazines with monsters, and they often used this picture, which was Nosferatu, and he wanted to bring this a bit of horror into this generation and put Nosferatu into one of his episodes to make it a bit creepy. I haven't seen this episode as a child, but people said that if you watch it as a child, it's pretty creepy and scary. But yeah, anyway, I think it's kind of funny. So it's so random and a bit funny. Overall, Nosferatu, I think it's a must watch for goth fans and fans of cinema and gothic cinema. It's very cinematic and it's very beautifully done, very beautifully shot, very beautifully acted. I think it's stunning. I really enjoyed it. It doesn't have any cheap jump scares. I watch a lot of horror movies and I watch them since I was 10, so I don't really get scared at horror movies. I wouldn't say that you would get scared, but I think the story was pretty good. If you've seen Nosferatu, I'm curious about what you think. Did you like it? Did you think it was boring? Because I've also heard this. Just let me know, and if you're still at it, you can like and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next review. Thank you.